going to talk about specific diseases because we want to get the basics of nutrition, and then we hope that in the future we'll be able to become more specific and talk about specific topics as the audience will choose. Yes, so the scope for today's presentation, we're going to briefly talk about some myths in nutrition, and then we shall talk about basics, and then we shall briefly look at some of the physiological changes that happen as we age, and then we shall also understand what nutrition assessment is and how to classify our nutritional status, and then we shall also talk about what malnutrition is and how we can manage the different types of malnutrition. Then we shall also talk about how much we should eat. We shall talk about nutrition and immunity, as well as something brief about nutritional supplements. Yes. So for the myths, there are so many myths about nutrition. I'm sure we all know some, and I hope that by the end of today's discussion we shall have been able to bust some of those myths. But some of them I have stated. You can add more in the chat section, more of the myths that you know. One of them is people tend to think that when you starve yourself or when you skip meals, then you'll be able to lose weight. And then other people think that if you're small, then you're less, or if you're small, then you cannot get diseases like hypertension or diabetes. And then some of us, as we are trying to lose weight, we think that the only thing that will help us is exercise. So we do not think about the kind of diets that we are eating. But as long as we're exercising and going to the gym, we hope that we are going to lose the weight quickly. Then, interestingly, there are people that think that when you drink too much water, you're going to gain weight. So they tend not to drink water because they're afraid of gaining weight. And then we have people that think that all carbohydrates are bad and they're the ones responsible for weight gain. And then others think that all fat is bad for health. And then there are those that think that alcohol, specifically waraji, will help lower blood pressure. So they drink with the hope that the waraji is going to help them lower their blood pressure as well as burn fat, hence helping them lose weight. So these are myths. So we hope that we are able to bust them, so that and we get a more informed point of view on how these different aspects work. So, sorry. Okay. So, what is nutrition? So nutrition is basically the process of the food that we take in and how it's utilized by the body for growth, metabolism, and body function. And the food and the drinks that we usually eat, we refer to them as the diet. So what is a balanced diet? If you consume a diet that contains the right amount of all the necessary nutrients, we shall see what the necessary nutrients are. So if you consume a diet that contains the right amount of the necessary nutrients required for growth, then that is a balanced diet. A nutrient is a substance that is found in food that the body needs in order to support and maintain life. These are some of the essential nutrients that the body needs in order to function, and they are divided into two groups. The first group is macronutrients and the second is micronutrients. So macronutrients are usually required by the body in large amounts, and that is why they're called macro. And these include carbohydrates. The picture gives us some examples. So some examples of carbohydrates, there's bread, there's rice, posho, matoke, sweet potatoes, millet, yams, among others. And then we have proteins, which have both animal protein and plant proteins. For example, the fish, meat, chicken, and then beans, peas, soya, among others. And then fat, which includes the different oils that we use to cook at home, and ghee, and other foods that give us fat. For example, avocado has some fat, nuts have fat, most animal foods have fat in them, coconuts have fat, so those are all sources of fat. And then when we move on to the micronutrients, we have minerals and vitamins, and these can be found in various types of foods, especially in fruits and vegetables. What are some of the functions of these essential nutrients? There are so many functions for each of these nutrients. However, we just picked out one or two to help us understand. So carbohydrates are the primary source of energy. So the main role that carbohydrates play in the body is to provide energy that the body uses for the different body mechanisms. And then also carbohydrates they make up some of the important macronutrients in the body. I'm sure we all know DNA and RNA. So these are all, they are made up by carbohydrates as one of the components. And then when we move to the proteins, proteins are responsible for building and repairing body cells and tissues. And then they are also a secondary source of energy. So in instances where the body does not have enough carbohydrates, it will turn to convert the proteins you've eaten into energy in order to function. Proteins are also necessary for wound healing, and they also provide a fluid balance in the body. Then fat also provides energy, and it also is used as an energy store. For example, when we eat excess carbohydrates, the body will use off what it needs, and then the balance will be stored as fat in the body. Fats also provide an insulation and protection for different organisms, for different organs in the body. And then fats also aid in digestion and bioavailability of nutrients. For example, there are some vitamins that cannot be digested or utilized without fat. For example, vitamin A and D. Yes, and then minerals. Each of the minerals that we know of, as well as each of the vitamins, have their individual functions, which are quite many, but they all work to maintain normal health and metabolic performance of the body. This includes vision, immunity for the body, bone and tooth health, wound healing, among other functions. So what are some of the importances of good nutrition? We need nutrition in order to be healthy, and it also improves the quality of our lives. And secondly, nutrition helps us prevent and manage some diseases, almost all diseases. For example, high blood pressure. And diabetes and cancer, among other diseases. Nutrition also enhances the body's ability to fight infection. So if you're feeding well, that means your body will have a good immunity, hence able to prevent or help you fight off infections. And then nutrition also helps us achieve and maintain optimal body weight, and also it makes medication more effective. Yes, so we will look into some of the physiological changes that happen as we age. There are various changes that happen as we grow from childhood to adulthood, and then to when we become older citizens. And these include a decrease in immune function.
Are you sure? That is interesting.
Yeah, when I was
a decrease in immune function where your body is no longer as able to fight off infections as it used to. And then also that the taste buds change, so you're not able to taste things very well as you used to. We sometimes get vision problems. Our skins become thinner, so when we get wounds, they take longer to heal. Then we have muscle and bone loss, and then we have more fat deposits. We have more fat deposits in the abdominal area. So this implies that we are at an increased risk of cancer, of diseases, different diseases like cancer, diabetes, dementia, and also our bodies are no longer able to efficiently absorb certain nutrients like some vitamins and minerals, but also our attitude and our attitude towards food may change, as well as our ability to prepare our own food may change due to different neurological conditions like depression, among others. But also we are at an increased risk of obesity, as well as undernutrition, underweight. So we are going to now look at a few basics about nutrition assessment. Nutrition assessment is usually done when you visit the clinic, and maybe the doctor or the clinician there wants to establish where you stand nutritionally. So there are certain things that they'll measure or look out for in order to know your nutritional status. So in nutrition assessment, we commonly use 4 methods, and that is anthropometry, biochemical tests, clinical methods, and dietary methods. In anthropometry majorly refers to the body measurements, the physical measurements that are done in order to classify your nutritional status. I'm sure that most of us, when we go to different clinics for any issue, they always take our weight. Sometimes they'll take your blood pressure, sometimes they'll take your height, and they may take your waist or hip circumference, they may take your skin fold thickness, among others. So all these help the clinician understand, help the clinician be able to classify what your nutritional status is. So in the pictures here, we can see someone taking their weight. Then in the middle picture here, we see a nurse measuring the gentleman's waist circumference. And then in the last picture here, that is skin fold thickness. It's also a measure of body fat. Oops, sorry. Yes, the second method is biochemical tests. These are usually done in the lab, where they will either test your blood or your urine or your stool for different aspects. They may check your blood sugar or your vitamin levels or any mineral levels, and these will help the clinician know what problem you may have, or what conditions you may have that may affect your nutritional status. The third method is the clinical assessment. This is what the clinician will really look out for, and these are physical examinations. So the clinician may look out for weight loss, may look out for low blood sugar or body temperature, or they may look out for that excess fat around your waist, or sometimes you may have shortness of breath, or maybe you have you're not sleeping well, or all those signs that you report to the clinician. They'll be able to establish if this has an influence on your nutritional status. And then lastly, the dietary assessment. With this, we basically look out for your diet quality and quantity. If you have any changes in appetite, any food allergies, and in case of inadequate food intake, we'll need to establish the reasons as to why you have inadequate food intake, and some of the methods we use for dietary assessment include the 24-hour recall, where they will ask you the different types of food you ate in the last 24 hours. And this will help the clinician to know if you're eating the right types of food. Or the clinician will have a list of different foods where they'll ask you how frequent or how often you eat these foods in order to help them establish your food intake. So all these 4 methods help to classify someone's nutritional status in order to make a plan for them to improve their nutritional status in case there is need. So after we have done nutrition assessment, we need to classify. And some of the methods that we use, some of the indices that we use to classify are the common one that we most of us have heard of is body mass index, or BMI, which uses your weight and height. But there are others like waist circumference, waist hip ratio, among others. And these will help the clinician know where you fall in order to make an informed plan. These are the BMI cutoffs as well as the waist circumference cutoffs. I will not go into so much detail, but maybe we can just highlight the normal. So the normal is your normal BMI should be between 18.5 to less than 25. So if you go to the clinic and your BMI is less than 18.5, then you know that you need to work on maybe adding some weight so that you come back to the normal ranges. But if it's above 25, then that means you need to work on losing some weight in order to come back to the normal ranges. If it's above 30, that means you have entered the obesity class, so you need to work on losing some weight. So if someone is in the obesity class, overweight and obesity class, it means their chances or their risk of getting other complications like the non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and other heart diseases, the risk has increased. So it's important to always try to target to have to lie in the normal range. And the same goes for waist circumference. For women, the recommended waist circumference should be less than 80 centimeters, while for men, it should be less than 94 centimeters. So for women, if you're above 88 centimeters, then you work on losing some belly fat so that you come back to less than 80 centimeters, while for men, it is if you're more than 102 centimeters. Yes, sorry. We can now look into what malnutrition is. For starters, mal means bad. So malnutrition is basically bad nutrition. So if you're taking food, certain nutrients in excess, or if certain nutrients are lacking, that means that is what we call malnutrition. So there are some causes of undernutrition is among the seniors, and the immediate causes are inadequate food intake and illness. So all these other causes, the underlying causes and the basic causes, all bring about immediate causes, which then result into malnutrition. So if we are dealing with malnutrition, with undernutrition, we need to focus on addressing the issue from the root cause. For example, if you have food insecurity, if you don't have access to food, and then if you have poor health services and poor nutrition education, low income and poverty, then this is most likely to affect your food intake, which then will result into malnutrition. So what are the different types of malnutrition? We have two. We have undernutrition and overnutrition. So for undernutrition, it can be classified as acute malnutrition, which occurs in a short period of time, whereby if someone is facing an illness or they have inadequate food intake, it may result into a rapid weight loss in a short period of time. And this is common among seniors. And then for chronic malnutrition, this is a bit happens over a prolonged period of time, and this is common for in children. Then another common category of undernutrition among seniors is micronutrient deficiencies, where someone is deficient in where someone is deficient in one or more vitamins or minerals. Yes. When we move on to the second type of malnutrition, which is overnutrition, this is mainly overweight and obesity, and it's usually characterized with abnormal or excess fat accumulation in the body. And this usually increases the risk of health problems like non-communicable diseases, and also reduces the quality of life. So how do we manage undernutrition? Remember, we said undernutrition results from inadequate intake of nutrients. So how do we manage that? One of the ways is to ensure that we consume a variety of nutrient-rich foods and ensure to have a balanced diet. I have an example here that I've put in a picture. So we see the first. We see the first picture here is of. The first picture here is of porridge. This is probably bushera. And then the second picture is of tea, black tea. So if we are to assess the nutritional content of bushera, we'll find that we are going to benefit more if someone had this for breakfast as opposed to the person that had black tea. For example, this bushera already has carbohydrates in them, it has minerals, it has vitamins, but also it has, it looks like there's milk added here, so there is also that added benefit. So if someone takes a cup of bushera in the morning, they're more likely to benefit more, to get more nutritive value as compared to another person X that has taken a cup of black tea, which is just water and tea leaves. So as we try to manage undernutrition, we need to focus on consuming nutrient-rich foods that are actually going to give you some nutrients, as opposed to other foods that may not benefit you much. And then when we talk about a balanced diet, we go back to one of the first slides where we saw the different nutrients that are needed by the body, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, the vitamins, and the minerals. So a balanced diet needs to have each of those nutrients within that one same meal, whether it's breakfast or lunch or dinner. We shall see an example as we move on how we can try to balance our meals. Secondly, another way we can manage undernutrition is if we try to modify the foods that we eat to improve appetite, because most of the times people that are underweight are most likely to have poor appetite. So if you give food that looks boring, they may not be able to, the appetite will not be stimulated. So I am sure when we look at the two pictures below, I'm sure most of us, or if not all of us, will want to eat this vegetable rice instead of the plain white steamed rice. Yeah, but also these added vegetables in the vegetable rice will also add some nutritive value. Some nutrients will be added to the food, which then will mean that you get more value out of eating this vegetable rice. Yes, other ways we can try to manage undernutrition would be through increasing nutrient and energy density of home foods. For example, if I'm to take porridge, I would maybe add some peanut paste in it, or some milk or egg or chia seeds. Even to food, you may add some nuts, some corn, vegetables, as all these things that you're adding have some nutrients in them, which will then improve the nutrient content of the original food that we are going to eat. And another strategy is through eating smaller meals, but more frequently throughout the day. Because you may not have enough appetite, or you may not be able to eat a lot of food at the same time, it would be better to eat small portions, but then eat them throughout the day, so that the body is supplied with nutrients and calories throughout the day. And also, among those meals, it's important to add some healthy snacks within that day in order to obtain more nutrients and calories. For example, an example of healthy snacks may be the fruits, nuts like groundnuts, cashew nuts, almonds, and any other nuts that you know. Seeds like simsim, pumpkin seeds, and any other healthy snacks that you can come across. Yes, another strategy is making sure that we manage the underlying disease that may have been brought about the undernutrition. For example, most diseases really increase the risk of becoming undernourished. I've given examples here like COVID, TB, HIV, diabetes, among others. So if you manage the disease, the underlying disease, then also the nutritional status will improve greatly. And then as we try to gain weight, we need to always monitor so that we check on progress. And then we also need to observe maximum sanitation and hygiene, food hygiene, as well as safe drinking water. And also we need to think about our eating habits and food preferences. This is an example of a meal plan for someone trying to gain weight. This is just an example, so you can always replace, substitute with what according to your preferences and availability. So for breakfast, we have, say, a cup of millet or soya porridge, and we have added milk to this porridge, or maybe we've added peanut or egg, and then we accompany it with maybe 2 slices of bread and a banana. It can be a different alternative for you. You may choose to eat katogo, you may choose to eat an egg, maize, anything really, according to what you want and what is available. But the whole point is making sure that at the end of the day, you've had a protein at your breakfast, you've had a carbohydrate, as well as a fruit or a vegetable. And then lunch, we have our dried fish in groundnuts with some matoke and pumpkin, and then some vegetables. And then for dinner, we have some peas, some vegetable rice and yam, and then avocado and booga. And then these are some different snack options that we may have. You can have a glass of yogurt, some groundnuts, some soya or simsim, pumpkin seeds, maize, a fruit salad, a smoothie. It depends on what you want and what you can access. Yes, so so we can now move on to how we can manage obesity and overweight and obesity.
How do you manage overweight?
Yes, how do you manage overweight and obesity? So usually weight loss programs should focus on maintaining adequate intake of essential nutrients, but reducing caloric intake. Those are two different things. So the DASH diet, this is a diet that is recommended for people with hypertension, but we can also borrow from it because it has a good approach which could also help to reduce weight. So in the DASH diet, the different recommendations include a diet rich in fruits and vegetables. We've already seen some examples of fruits and some examples of vegetables. And then the diet needs to be high in lean meat, poultry, and fish. By lean, we mean meat that is not fatty. So in other words, when you go to buy meat, choose the cuts that don't have a lot, that do not have fat and masavu. Yes, and then the DASH diet also focuses on low-fat dairy products. For example, if you're to take milk, either choose the low-fat milk or greatly dilute the milk that if you're taking directly from a cow, greatly dilute it. And then other recommendations for the DASH diet include whole grain breads and cereals. These are foods that have not been refined or processed. For example, I'll give an example of maize and posho. They make posho from maize. However, when you eat maize, you have eaten a whole grain because it has not been refined or processed in any way. But when you eat posho, you have eaten a refined food. So you will not get the benefits in the posho like that you got in the maize. So in this case, you're better off eating the maize than the white posho. And then also, the diet also recommends plenty of fluids. There are some important considerations that we need to think about as we embark on our weight loss program or journey. We need to, first of all, understand the cause of your weight gain, because there are very many things that bring about weight gain. As much as dietary habits have a great role to play in this, there are other underlying factors that bring about weight gain. For example, it might be an underlying disease that you have. It might be a medication that you're taking. It might be a hormonal imbalance. It might be, there are very many factors. So it's always important to check why exactly you're gaining weight. Is it entirely because of unhealthy dietary intake, or there's something else? So as soon as you discover that's something else, then it's better to address the weight loss program, starting with the underlying issue. And then we also need to know that commitment and discipline is very key on the weight loss journey, because you did not gain the weight in one day, so you can't lose it in one day. So you need to be committed and also give yourself time. Yes. Then it's also important to know that what you eat is more important than how much you eat. At the beginning, we had a myth where people think that when I skip meals or when I starve myself, then I'll be able to lose weight. So what usually happens is people will probably choose to eat one meal a day because they are trying to reduce their food intake. So they'll choose to eat one meal a day, say lunch. But when that meal comes, they'll have very many unhealthy choices on that plate. And then they'll also tend to eat more than they should, because at the back of their minds, they're eating for a whole day. So at the end of the day, you're not able to achieve what you want simply because you considered how much you eat and ignored what you're actually eating. Yes, so what we eat, we should really focus on consuming more nutrient-dense foods. For example, the whole grains, fruits and vegetables, the fish, the nuts, lean protein sources, and low-fat diets, as we saw from the DASH diet. And most of these foods are rich in a nutrient called fiber, which is very important in helping us lose weight. And then we also need to limit intake of refined grains and highly processed foods as much as possible. For example, rice, posho, spaghetti, and other snacks like chapati, mandazi, and samosas made from that refined wheat flour. And then also we need to avoid empty calories. Empty calories are foods which are high in calories but are very low in nutrients. And most of these are the processed foods on our markets. For example, soda and alcohol, candies and cakes. You find that when you drink soda, your sugar levels will really go high and you'll get, a lot of calories, but you're not going to get any nutrients from soda. So what should our plate look like, or how much should we eat? I like to borrow knowledge from the diabetic plate. On the left we have here we have the diabetic plate, and it shows the proportion of food that you're supposed to put on your plate in order to achieve optimal weight loss. Half of your plate should be that is 50%, should be filled with vegetables and or fruits, as we see here. And then on the other half, we'll split it into two. 25% will have carbohydrates, while the remaining 25 will have the proteins, either animal or plant proteins. So most of us think this is impossible, but it's actually possible. We have two examples here. This plate up here is, I think, from a function. As we all know, when we go to weddings and there's a buffet and we pile up our plates with like 7 types of refined carbohydrates, 2 types of fatty meat, and 1/4 teaspoon of vegetables. And then at the end of that day, we wonder why we are not losing weight. So still, this may be for a party, but there are people who actually eat like this at their homes. So you see that we are eating, there are so many refined carbohydrates on this plate, but also if we are to count just the carbohydrates, there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 2 types of rice. So which means that you're actually taking in more carbohydrates than your body needs, because most likely you're not, and most of us are not very active. So you'll find that we are eating more carbohydrates than the body needs. So the body will use off the little energy that it needs, and then it will end up storing the rest as fat, which then will make our weight loss journeys difficult. So if we are able to reverse this and maybe take an example of the plate below, where this person really tried to reduce, to have as many vegetables on their plate as possible and a variety of them. And then they have just a small piece of matoke and some nuts, and at the end of that day, they are good to go. Yes, so at the end of that day, when someone eats like this, they'll actually be, they'll get satisfied and they'll be energetic enough to go on with their day. While when someone eats like this plate above, after eating this food, the next thing you're thinking, oh, I need to sleep, or I'm very exhausted and tired. That is why most of us are usually tired after lunch, because we eat like this. Yes, so this is a sample meal of how we can plan our meals as we are trying to lose weight. Remember that we are not going to miss meals in a bid to lose weight. We are going to have all our meals because the body needs them, and we are going to try and choose nutrient rich foods. However, we try as much as possible to keep the calories low. So for breakfast, if we have our black tea, and then we can have katogo, mixed with vegetables, and then we have a fruit. Then in the between breakfast and lunch, we can have a snack that may be a vegetable salad, a fruit salad, or a vegetable smoothie, or even a fruit smoothie. Why I'm saying smoothie is because usually when we make juice out of fruits or vegetables, we throw away that content that we have sieved out. Yet that is the important nutrient. Yet in a smoothie, you're going to just get your fruits or your vegetables, put them in, say, a blender, and just, heat up, blend everything and drink them the way they are without sieving. So you're actually getting the fiber that is going to help you, one, to feel satisfied, but also to help remove fat from the body, among other functions, and also to help your gut health. And then for lunch, we have our ginat sauce with matoke and avocado and nakati. So in this case, in order to try and achieve the one serving, you can just look at your fist, your palm, and the matoke you eat or the food you eat that you put on your plate should not be bigger than your fist. That is how we can try and estimate what a serving is. So if we say half a serving, that means it has to be half your fist. If we say one serving, then it has to be as big as your fist. If it's bigger than that, then that means you've exceeded the one serving. And then remember, we make the fruits, the vegetables at least 50% of your plate. So that is why we say at least 2 palms, because 2 palms, they should be able to make your plate big enough. To make tea, you can spice it the way you want. You can add some ginger, some cinnamon, or cloves, or mujaja, in any way that you would like. And then you can eat that with any healthy snack. It can be nuts, pumpkin seeds, maize, gonja, or anything else that you have access to. And then dinner, we can have fish, maybe fish stew, maybe fish and nuts, or any other protein food that you have access to. And then sweet potato or yam, and then vegetables. But we need to ensure that we have our dinner as early as possible, at least before 7, and then we shouldn't go to bed immediately. We need to give the body some time to break down this food before you go to bed. These are some of the other things that we can engage in on our weight loss journey. We need to be physically active, at least 30 minutes a day for at least 5 days of the week. We can run, we can do aerobics, we can walk. We can walk, among other exercises that we can do. Other people can actually do things like digging, normal housework. As long as you're keeping your body active, that can be helpful. And then if you smoke, it's very important that you stop, as this also has other risks of other diseases like cardiovascular diseases. And then if we take alcohol, we need to limit it to at most 1 to 2 drinks a day, and a maximum of 6 to 7 drinks a week. And you should not drink you should not take all the 7 drinks in one sitting, because you're like, for me, I didn't drink on Monday up to Thursday, so today, Saturday, I'm having all my 6 bottles. No, that is not recommended. So in any sitting, you should drink a maximum of 2 drinks. And as this will greatly help with your weight loss. And then also, it's important to have a good water intake, at least 2 liters a day, and preferably room temperature to warm water. What are some of the important nutrients that we should focus on as we age? As much as all nutrients are important, I just thought that we could highlight a few. One of them is the proteins, which are required for muscle and bone health. Remember, we said that as we age, our muscle, we tend to get muscle and bone health and chances of getting, bone loss and chances of getting fractures when we fall increase. So we need to really ensure that we are taking in adequate proteins. And then the dietary fiber, which we find in the fruits, the vegetables, and the whole grains, will help us prevent things like constipation, but it also help us with weight loss, but also help us protect against diseases like heart diseases and diabetes, among others. Then omega-3 fatty acids, which will provide protection against cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. And this is usually found in fatty fish. And then vitamin B12, which is important for nerve health. And then vitamin D, which is necessary for bone health, and then vitamin E, which is good for the immunity. However, when we eat a balanced diet, we are able to obtain all these nutrients from there. So our main focus should be to eat a balanced diet in order to get all these nutrients in their right amount. So we'll briefly talk about nutrition and immunity. The food that we eat is very important in building our immune system. And when we have a good immune system, that means we have a fighting chance at any infections that we may get. One, to prevent the infections from happening. And if they happen, it will help to shorten the recovery period. Some foods that we may look out for to help us build our immune system, some nutrients. We have vitamin C, which is found mainly in these acidic fruits like oranges, lemon, pineapple, tomatoes, etc. And then we have vitamin A, which is usually found in yellow and orange fruits and vegetables. For example, the pumpkins, the carrots, and the pawpaws and spinach. And then we have zinc, which we can find in pumpkin seeds, simsim, nuts. And then we have other different foods and herbs, other spices and herbs that have bioactive compounds, which are also very good for boosting our immunity. For example, garlic, ginger, moringa, and then vitamin D, which we find in sunlight, but we can also get in eggs and liver, and then selenium and iron. So as I said earlier, still it's important for us to have a balanced diet, because then we can get all these foods from that diet, as opposed to trying to look for a particular food. Yes, so these are some of the steps that we can take to ensure that we boost our immunity for a healthy immune system. We need to eat a balanced diet with whole fruits, vegetables, proteins, whole grains, and plenty of water. If the balanced diet is not available, a supplement may be used. The keyword here is may. And this only happens if you're not really able to access a balanced diet and you're having a deficiency in any of the important nutrients. And then it's also important to engage in moderate, regular physical exercises, as we earlier said, at least 30 minutes a day for at least 5 days of the week. And then we also need to aim at managing our stress and also drinking alcohol in moderation and avoiding smoking. Yes, so lastly, we will look at the nutrition supplements. These are available in different forms. There are some that are tablets, others are powders, others are drinks, and it's a habit. It's a common habit that most seniors have at least 3 bottles in their homes of different supplements. But one important point to note is we must make sure that these supplements do not replace a healthy, balanced diet. Because these supplements are supposed, as you hear the word supplement, they are supposed to supplement, or in other words, complement the diet that you're already having, and that is in case you're not getting enough of the nutrients from your diet. So most of us actually do not need these supplements because we can get all the necessary nutrients that we need from the food that we are eating. So before we take these supplements, always make sure that you check with a clinician or your doctor to ensure that you're not taking unnecessary supplements, because some of them may have dangerous effects, like say toxicity. If you remember that the vitamins and minerals are needed in small quantities in the body. So if you're already eating enough and then you add the supplements, you may end up having too much of that particular nutrient, which then may bring other problems. But also, some of them may interact with any other medication that you may be taking at that particular moment. For example, you may be taking, say, maybe you may have diabetes, and then you take this other supplement, which then may alter may increase your blood sugar. It may be for antihypertensives, and you take a supplement that may interact with the medicine, which then will make its effectiveness reduced. So it's important that you always check with your doctor before you take these supplements. And also for people that take more than one, also always be careful to check the content of each of them, because most of the times most of them are multi, they put many nutrients in one bottle. So you may end up taking the same nutrient from the 3 bottles, and you end up taking in more than you need. So it's always important to check twice before you take the supplements, as much as they are very needed, especially as we age. Yes, so in conclusion, we need to remember that good nutrition today means optimal health tomorrow. So we can make the good nutrition choices even later in life. So you can start now, even if you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, you can start now. It will still give you a good benefit as you grow older. And then also always remember to consult your doctor before taking any nutrition supplements. And lastly, as a wise man once said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther Nalugga. Audience, could you join me in giving our presenter a thunderous clap? You can use your reactions and give a clap to her. Thank you so much. It's been very, very educative, very stimulating, and we do have a lot of questions in the chat room. I think we'll give you just a minute to take a sip of water while we read to you some of the questions. I'm very happy to see that we are now 59 attendees. We started off with about 23, and you've been very, very good audience. I see a lot of communication in the chat. Please remember to put your email in the chat so that we can send you all the communication, fresh communication like today's and old ones. And you can also send us questions, concerns, and topics you might want us to present in our next subsequent series. I will also just take this opportunity to remind you that we do meet every last Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. Today we are blessed with cool weather and a bit of rain, so we started off a little late, but be sure to find us on at 10 a.m. every last Saturday of the month. Our speaker has touched a lot of interesting aspects of food or nutrition as such. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and we do have some time to cover the questions for today. I will not be selfish, I will not ask mine first, but I'll go to the chat and read out some, or any one of you who wants to ask directly, you can put up your hand. I can see Elizabeth. Please, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yes, my question to to Esther is, if let's say in a week you're not able to eat fish, how often should you take like omega-3 supplements?
Yes, I've seen Louis Chibuka hand has been up. I don't know whether you want to ask or it's just your mic. If Louis is not having a question, anyone else who wants to ask directly, please just indicate by raising your hand. Okay. I'll read a few questions and then we will ask our presenter to come back to that. One question from Philippa. What practical advice would you give caregivers to help them manage weight gain in seniors who are not physically mobile? That's a direct question. I think it came in quite early. You might have covered, but it doesn't hurt. Esther, we do have caregivers who may not be old, so that question is very, very relevant. They are responsible to see that the seniors eat properly. And another question is, would obesity be malnutrition as defined in your presentation? I think, Esther, you could take those 3 questions, then we can continue on.
All right, thank you, Dr. Christina. So the first person asked how often to eat omega-3 vitamins if you do not have access to fish. It usually depends on if you're actually deficient, but usually the tins, those supplement tins have a recommendation of how often you can eat. You can take, it can be 1 pill daily or 1 pill weekly, so it will depend on the situation, but I would say 1 pill daily would be okay. And then what practical advice would you give caretakers for seniors who are not physically mobile? Here we can focus more on their diets. For example, you try to give them more nutrient rich but low calorie foods, for example, the fruits and the vegetables, whole grains, and lean meat, or fish, so that their calorie intake is low, but their nutrient intake is high. That's where they're able to maintain a healthy, that bodies are able to be healthy, but without excessive weight gain. But also, whichever way they can stretch a bit, you can support them with that. And then the other person asked, would obesity be malnutrition as defined in your presentation? So yes, obesity is malnutrition. So usually people tend to think that malnutrition is only undernutrition, or that is what we have been taught in school, or because in Uganda undernutrition was a bigger problem before, so most of the syllabus is concentrated on undernutrition, thus calling it malnutrition. But even overnutrition, which includes overweight and obesity, is categorized as malnutrition.
The third one was really, I think, making it a little easier to the caregivers. What advice would you give to caregivers to help them manage weight gain in the seniors who may be sedentary or really physically not very mobile?
I think I've addressed that one. It's focusing on their diet, making sure that you choose foods which are rich in nutrients but are low in calories. And the examples are the plenty of fruits and vegetables, the meat that is not fatty, fish, the legumes like the beans and peas, and then also adequate water intake. Yeah, and whole grains, foods that are not refined.
Okay. You want to continue?
Yes, I was going to read the next question.
Maybe before you read it, I think we are getting questions which may appear like someone did not listen, but I think it's due to the fact that we've been eating, like, for example, I'm a rich man, I don't eat katunkuma. I'm a young lady, I'm going to marry, and I have to be pumped with the mata or a shabwe or something like that for a week. You know, I'm a hunter in Karamoja. I eat meat and milk and blood. So our eating had no intentions towards our health. It's like more towards lifestyle, bananda babatia. How can a general manager have a plate full of dodo and nakati? Even how do I go and buy dodo more than fatty meat? So I think these questions may appear like, I think there is need for you to maybe emphasize the change of attitude, basically, to the seniors and their caregivers. I don't know. That's what I get from this. So the question here is, so if one wanted to start being more intentional about eating, do you have some suggestions on how to start? For example, what foods to buy? Can you imagine a general manager who is now with hypertension and diabetes, but we still need to do something about it. And the caregiver needs that guidance.
Yes, so one point to start at is planning ahead of time. For example, you could plan out your weekly, you can have, say, a weekly meal plan and know that on Monday I will eat this for breakfast, lunch, and supper, and then Tuesday and that and that. So that way you're able to make a shopping list early enough And then when you go to the market, you know exactly what you're looking out for. So as you make the meal plan, that is where you bring in the concept of I'm looking for nutrient-rich foods which are low in calories. I want to eat I want to eat more fruits and vegetables, and I want to eat a variety of them. So which means on your shopping list, you will have different fruits like mangoes, melon, pineapple, among others. Then when you move to, say, the proteins, you know that I want to eat from both the animal proteins and the plant proteins, and I will keep interchanging. So that on your list, then you'll have, say, beans and peas, and then you have some fish and maybe chicken. And if you like meat, you can make sure that you get the lean meat. And then same applies to the different vegetables, and then the whole grain foods, the non-refined foods. So you know that I've put my maize, I've put my matoke, my yam, and sweet potatoes. So when you plan ahead, you're able to picture out the way you're going to combine these healthy foods, and then you buy them. So when the cooking time comes, you're not in should I say, panic mode, or going with what is available, because you actually planned and made sure that all that you need for that week or that day is already available. So I think that is one important point to start at.
Yes, Keith, thank you so much for that enlightenment. And the following 3 questions are, let me just categorize them. Simple questions, but I think they are still relevant. Someone wants to know how many eggs should a senior take in a week. Then, is it realistic to worry about aflatoxin in groundnuts for sauce and snack? Is it advisable to start the day on fruits before having breakfast? Secondly, what is the role of eggs in our diet, and how should they be taken, i.e. cooking method for the eggs? And the measure, you gave a measure, and someone is appreciating the measure of a fist is very practical. Just look at your fist and see how much food you should be putting on your plate. I think you could take those 3, and we continue.
Yes, all right. So how many eggs should a senior take a day? It depends on the situation. If the senior is not does not have say high cholesterol or high fat in the body, then an egg a day would really would be okay, and that's like a maximum of 7 a week. But if they have high cholesterol, then it can be less than that. And then aflatoxins, yes, it's realistic to worry about them. So the best thing to do about that is to try, if we are eating our GNATs, or if we are preparing them, one, we can try to buy from trusted sources that maybe try to sort them well to remove those ones that might be affected. But also, as if we cook them at home, we can make sure we remove those bad GNATs, and we leave only the good ones, so that we can reduce the risk as much as possible. Then, is it advisable to start the day on fruits? Yes, that is okay. It's okay to start the day with fruits. We can eat fruits at as much as possible at any time, as long as at the end of the day, we also try to eat more of the other. I mean, we try to eat from the other food groups as well. So it's okay to start with the fruits. And then, what role the eggs play in the diet? Eggs are rich in different nutrients, like the protein, which is good for bodybuilding, and the cooking methods vary. The cooking methods vary. You can boil, you can fry. If you do not have any restrictions, you can fry. But when you're frying, it's better to use vegetable oil and just a little. Yes, I think I have answered that.
Okay, thank you very much. You could just maybe briefly do the milk. Is milk not only for babies then? After this nice talk, is milk then not only for babies?
There is a school of thought on that, but I would say that yes, babies benefit more from the milk, but if you as an adult need the milk, then it's okay to take it. For example, if you're underweight and you need to put on some weight, it would be good to use, milk to enrich some of the foods that you're eating. But if you're really maybe trying to lose weight or your normal weight, you can as well do away with the milk. Yeah.
Okay, then someone wanted to know the types of fish, fatty fish in our country, and they are listed like Semtundu, Bhutan, Mali. The role of supplement in boosting immunity. Yes, we are going to share the documents that has been answered. And I want to keep thanking those who are posting their emails and also those who are keeping their mics muted. Thank you very much. Again, we have some question on supplement. How often can one take omega-3 fatty supplements in a week? Oh, we did this, sorry. Yes, thank you so much for the presentation, Esther. Everybody is highly appreciative. Audience, you can put up your hand if you have a comment or suggestion.
There's a question about a keto diet, whether it would be advisable for people above 60 years.
Yes, I could answer that. I would not recommend a keto diet for someone above 60 years. For those that may not know what a keto diet is, these are diets that are usually very high in fat, but very low in carbohydrates. So the body then ends up using the fat as the source of energy. So it's more like breaks down the fat to provide energy for the body. I think that if you use a keto diet for a prolonged period of time, you may sort of alter other body systems around the other body mechanisms. So I would not recommend a keto diet for someone above 60. However, they could simply just have their balanced diet, choose healthy carbohydrates, and then the healthy fats, and then the protein. And at the end of that day, you will achieve the same weight loss.
Okay. Also a question about how to prepare a silverfish to benefit from it nutritionally.
Yes, so some people make it powder and put it in different foods, or buy the one that is already powdered and put it in different foods. Other people steam it, others fry it. So steaming would be good because then you do not lose the nutritive value. But still, sometimes frying makes it more, should I say, palatable, more easy to eat. So whichever that you choose, you can go with that.
Yes, there's a situation where someone has undergone surgery, and there's a suggestion that in your next talk, you could highlight nutrition, the role of nutrition to aid recovery from surgery. Just take a note, please, or you could give a brief comment on that as we go along.
Yes, yes, we can have that organized with the organizers, and nutrition does play a big role in surgery, so post-surgery, in order to help the recovery process. For example, we talked about how proteins are good, are necessary for repairing body cells and tissues. And then also we talked about the different nutrients that are required for building immunity and helping in recovery of different illnesses. So all these come into play after someone has been has had a surgery. So yes, we can have that organized.
There is a question of do you recommend items like cornflakes and Weetabix? And someone wants to comment on the last question. That is Dem. Dem, would you like to unmute and comment? We give Esther a breather.
Thank you, Esther, for your presentation. It was very good. Sorry, I came in at the end, in the middle of it, and I managed to catch the section where you talked about portion sizes of when you brought in the DASH diet. And I think that plays well in the hand in hand, or goes hand in hand with the previous talk where we're talking about hypertension, where people should probably consider using both Mediterranean and the DASH diet. I think are very good. Portion sizes definitely play a big role. And I think when it comes to that question of where somebody has asked seniors or caregivers managing weight and those who are unable to exercise and controlling weight, a large proportion of that will go down to portion sizes, minimizing fruit. While fruit is good, I think the recommended intake is about 2 pieces of fruit or 2 fruit portions, I think, if you might correct me from the nutritional perspective. But too much fruit, while it is good, has a lot of fructose, which will go into forming a lot of fat when not consumed. So you want to minimize the fruit, probably heap up more on the vegetables, and so that you minimize that conversion of the fructose, which goes into fat. So maybe 1 to 2 fruit portions a day is what is normally recommended, especially if you're not very active. And going back again to the question of how to manage weight, I think from a nutritional perspective, we tend to recommend 3 meals, 4 meals a day, but we have so much food. Yet previously, when we're not endowed with so much food around, I think starvation was part of the process. And I think starvation from a weight management perspective is very, very helpful. And if done properly, fasting 2 days a week, 3 days a week, even 5 days a week is not unhealthy. It is really very healthy and keeps many people's weight in check. So while most recommended consumption might be take all your portions a day, but you might realize you can't consume all that energy. And the only way you can minimize or not gain the weight is by reducing how much you take, because energy in, energy out. If you can't balance that equation, then you're just going to put on weight. So whatever you do, minimize on the processed food, as you've said. Doing things like smoothies, people should go with caution, because you find that when you do smoothies, you're going to put in so many fruits in 1 cup or in 1 jar, and the energy content, if you're not following that, is going to be very high. So you might say you might put in a mango, you put in pineapple, you put in something else, by the time you actually calculate how much calorie content that is in there, you probably have gone past the recommended for that day. So the best thing is just to consume food in its wholesome state. Eat the fruit whole. If you can avoid juicing it, I know juicing is good, but if you are going to make juice, for example, you might use 3 oranges, whereas if you sit down and eat an orange, 1 might be enough. So you find that your energy consumption just balances out, not necessarily, you avoid the sugar which you add in the fruit, and then you avoid too much of the fructose that will come out of the juiced fruit, and so that you minimize on your calorie content. I think there was a question on, I think the cereal.
Yes.
Which
Conflicts,
again,
yes.
Yes, that all goes back to processed food. So any food that is processed, I think we process food like maize into kawunga. If you throw maize into maize flour, you're eating the whole kernel. It's not as bad as if you get the one where they just take a bit of the kernel and just process a bit of it. So if you take a whole grain and you process it, but then you take it also in a quantity that is not excessive, you're probably better off than a person who is, because some of them, you can't buy maize all the time. It's not going to be in season all the time, but you can buy kawunga, you can keep it in, just take amounts that are not excessive. As you said, use your palm to measure and you get your portion sizes and see how you go. Goes back to the question of fish and supplements. I think it's not normally recommended to take 2 portions of, I think 1 or 2 portions a week of fish, just to minimize on the mercury consumption that you get from too much fish. You don't necessarily have to supplement on the omega-3, because if you eat your vegetables and you will get another source of omega-3, and you don't necessarily need to get omega-3 supplements. I think if one ate a reasonable amount of vegetables and minimize your animal protein in a week, because animal protein has its negative effects. More plant protein is better. As much as you want in plant protein is most beneficial. Animal protein, especially red meat, we have got to be cautious because of the other cancer-related issues that come with it. Tend to eat more white meat, chicken, fish. But again, you minimize your portions in a week, to say limit your meat portions in a week to about 2-3 in a week, and go back to using as much vegetable protein as you can. I think that is what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Dame. This is the way to go, really. This is a participatory session, and all of you are welcome to take part and advise where necessary. And on that note, I could ask Sarah Wamala to unmute and give us your comments. We do have a few more minutes left for this session, so we can enjoy your active participation.
Thank you very much. Mine is a question or a comment. There are studies that are telling us that our soils in Uganda are degraded. And one of the things, one of what that means is that the crops that we grow do not have enough nutrients in them. So, and they're telling us that even if you sometimes get spinach, dodo, whatever you get, it doesn't have the nutrient density that we require, that is needed by our bodies. Sometimes there's also a concern of too much pesticides on the vegetables. What are your comments on that? Yeah.
Esther, before you answer, can I ask Sarah? You had earlier put a comment that what food can help people slow digestion. And I would like Esther to wrap all that and get Sarah satisfied.
Yes, and maybe just that question I asked because there are people, I know someone who has very slow digestion, as in they eat the food and it just stays in the stomach, so what can we do to help the person digest faster? Thank you.
Esther?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions. About the soil content, the nutrient, yes, about the soil content. That may be true because different things. I mean, things have changed now. We are using a lot of. There's a lot of environmental change that is happening, but we need to also remember that the body actually really needs vitamins and minerals in very small quantities. So which means that it would only be a problem if you realize that you're deficient in any of these nutrients. That is only when it will be a problem. But if you're eating from a variety of these different foods, say if you're eating from a variety of foods, you will then be able to get the required nutrients that the body needs. So I think as much as the soil content is no longer as good as it used to be, and the foods are no longer as nutrient dense as they used to be, if you're eating from a variety of them and you're eating a balanced diet, you should be able to get enough. But if you're not getting enough, then that's when, if you find out or if you're diagnosed that you're not getting enough, then that's when you can think of alternative sources like the supplements. Yes, and then the question on slow digestion, I think the best thing to do first is to find out if there are any underlying issues that may be bringing about the slow digestion. But also, you could also think about how physically active this person is, as also physical activity can help on quickening digestion. But also the quantities of food eaten. The quantities of food eaten in one sitting, for example, in one meal, do they eat a lot of food or just a little? Yes. So, and then also the amount of water that they drink. So you could look through all that and see how to help the person. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. There are more, but rather specific questions, like going into details of vitamin, this and that. For example, someone is puzzled and would like to know if they've been stopped from having this, and let me see, the food, and she wants to know what food they would take to get potassium. Another one, how to get vitamin D. But as we near wrapping up, I would like to read a comment from Jane Kadama. I have found keeping a kitchen garden for vegetables very useful. I exercise while working in it, and at the end of the day, eat fresh veggies and herbs from it. It also connects me with nature, which is very relaxing. I think for seniors, that's a very, very relevant question. Instead of looking at supermarkets, you could turn your little compound into a vegetable garden. Your small compound can become a vegetable garden. The comment on vitamin D deficiency in old age. Esther, I think the talk has been very stimulating. The questions are still there and comments, but kindly just make a comment on those last two.
Yes, vitamin D in old age. Earlier on, we mentioned that as we age, our bone health really reduces, and vitamin D is very one of the functions of vitamin D is to maintain bone health. So that is why it's important in seniors, because as they age, it's easy for them to get fractures, or when they fall, their bone quality is reducing, should I say. So vitamin D would really help to give them, to help them have stronger bones. So that's the importance. And then the other question about potassium and kidney disease, I think it would be nutrition and kidney disease is a whole topic altogether. So choosing foods to eat for people with kidney disease is a bit of a complex issue, especially is a bit of a complex issue. So I would suggest that it would be good if you got a one-on-one with maybe a nutritionist, and you sit out and lay out a plan depending on the foods that you have available, the foods that the person loves, and the foods that the balances, because it's really around balancing what is available versus what you should have. So I suggest that you should have a sit down with someone and they help you out with that in a detailed way. Dr. Christina, is there any other that I need to?
There's Katalekeka. Any recommendations of food to boost memory and general brain function? And that will be our last question, really. I think this is detailed, but just give a brief.
Sorry, I had muted my microphone. One of the foods that boosts mainly that I would recommend is fish. Fish is a good one, but also other foods like pumpkin, some vegetables like pumpkin, broccoli, spinach. Yeah, I think I would recommend that now. Most of the green leafy vegetables really would do good.
Oh, thank you so much, Esther. This has been a very, very stimulating 1 hour, 2 hour session. I've liked the participation. All of you have been very active and challenged to give more talk on nutrition in its specialty as we handle the senior and as we age intentionally. Is a very, very, very necessary talk in the future. If there is need to have a one-on-one, I'm sure there's a plan for such sessions in the future. So let's keep together every last Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. Please keep in touch on email, purposefulaging@gmail.com. Do visit our YouTube channel and subscribe. If any questions have not been answered, please do post all of those to any of us on WhatsApp or any other way you want to reach us, and keep your ears on the ground for the very next stimulating sessions. Finally, please join me to give a thunderous applause to Esther Nalugga. She's done justice to nutrition in purposeful aging. Please, Esther, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been very stimulating, very informative. We are all better off as we age with this kind of information. Thank you very much, and let's close with a thunderous clap for Esther. Thank you.
Thank you too for having me and for the very interactive audience.
Thank you and have a blessed weekend.